Yeah, thank you everyone for coming to the talk today. Will unfortunately could not make it today, so I will be presenting kind of the business side of Spark Geo today, and then later on in the week I'll be talking more on the technical side of some of the work that we do. The keynote this morning was pretty apt. Openness for a consulting organization is kind of different. Usually when we're consulting, we go in and work with companies and have to work on their IP and make sure that things are done more or less in secret so that companies don't lose their competitive advantage. Will has been talking about this for quite a while, about doing this in the open and making sure that everyone can understand the technical space that we're in and indeed understand the context. So one of the quotes that gets passed around our Slack channel quite often is, the future is already here, it's just very unevenly distributed. So this is from an author, William Gibson, Neuromancer. It's a great science fiction book. If anyone has not read it, I recommend you go do it. What this quote really shows is that geospatial is years ahead of most of the consumers. When we're talking about the maps that consumers want to go out and understand, like offline and online editing access and syncing, a lot of the consumers don't think about this stuff. And it's on geospatial people to think about this and make sure that we communicate it effectively out so that we bring everyone up to the future, as it were. So Spark Geo, we've been around for about 12 years now, and geospatial is continuing to change the world we live in. We've seen the rise of like Google Earth and Google Maps. People can start understanding their world a little bit better. So we like to build custom technology to sync things together. So we like to describe ourselves as a glue company. No one goes out and uses GDAL by itself and you have a product. You'll use GDAL to create a TIFF, for example, or modify a TIFF for some other use case. That's usually not the end of it. So when we're talking about geospatial technology, we want to marry these things and make sure that we can present a unified story out to our customers. So one of the things that really happens is landscape changes. We live in a dynamic world. We have plate tectonics, and because of that, we have different projection systems, different datums, and we need to understand that and communicate it out. A lot of people think that you make a map and it's done. Maps are out of date the minute you print them. So you have to continually update, and geospatial provides the tools for that. So Will talks about openness, and in his role as CEO, his job is to think about strategy. How do we apply openness and communicate it out so that everyone can benefit from the technology? So openness is a philosophical approach that shares ideas, data, code, and makes it so that everyone can access it. Quite often we're writing in English. I'm presenting in English. Thank you for all of the presenters who English is not your first language. It makes it very accessible for me, but it doesn't go the other way, right? We want to make sure that people can get data not just in English. We want to make sure that Spanish is supported, Albanian, Russian, Chinese. There's a whole bunch of different languages that if we don't have that ability to communicate, we lose out on that collaboration. So strategic advantage is making sure you understand where your data fits, where your technology fits, where your company fits. These two are kind of at odds with each other, openness and a strategic advantage, because once you find your niche, we're in a pretty small geospatial world. I would say there's probably like maybe 20,000 people in the world that know GDAL and know about it, and that's a pretty small percentage of the entire population. So you want to make sure that once you get your niche, you can grow it, you can seed it, you can ultimately make money off it if you're a company. Openness kind of takes that away. You're sharing your secret sauce. But if you have a lot of people doing the same thing and talking about it, you get rising tides and they raise all boats, so everyone gets better. So this is how you kind of marry these two ideas. So complementary assets, Will talks about this quite often. These are technologies that individually they're good, but once you start bringing them together, you get a lot more benefit. GDAL is an example of this. OGC is an example of this. They have the specs, but no one just implements WMS and calls it good. You usually have to figure out it's WMS 1.1 or WMS 1.0 or OGC API. You need to make sure that all these complementary assets are there and you merge them appropriately. So this is what modern geospatial is. We want to build new capabilities and get new opportunities from that. So we have, the advent of AWS and Google and Azure and private clouds to be able to do processing on someone else's computer. I don't have to think about it anymore. I can just buy it and it's out of my hair. It's not necessarily the case, but that's the selling point. You get smart space, you get AI and technologies coming in, you get open source, open data, open standards, and then you have smart devices where people can go in, quickly enter data, and brings it into modern geospatial. So openness is a complementary asset by itself. When we talk about open source, GeoServer, GDAL, these tools that bring people up and allow them to understand what you're talking about, understand their data and explore it so that you're on the same level for communication. We talk about open standards. OGC pushes this. I'm on the STAC steering committee. We want to make sure that open standards are around so that everyone can speak the same language, as it were, and there's a lot less room for miscommunication. That's why you have schemas. That's why you ship your data back, your data forms back to the user, so that you can say, is this what you meant? And they say, yes, this is what I meant. It's a negotiation the entire time, and you just want to make it easy. These are often conflated, so they're blown up or they're put together, and all the nuances are driven away. But they are unique. The nuances are really what you want to focus on because that's where the niches happen. So within this, open innovation is another one that we want to do. Open innovation like code sprints, where you can talk about ideas. You can say, I have been working on this project. You don't have to name customers, but I solved something this way. Little tricks help you get around kind of the annoying parts, especially WMS 1.0 and 1.1, where they switched latitude and longitude. If you don't talk about this with people, they don't know, and they just think their data is broken and move on to something else like Esri. So you want to make sure that open innovation happens so that you can communicate the issues that come up and you don't develop in silos. So openness is a strategic advantage for us because the area that we work in is so small. I estimate 20,000 people know GDAL. So if I have a problem, there's a great mailing list and I can go look at that and see, oh, good, Evan has already solved this problem and it's not a problem for me anymore. So there's two types of open innovation. There's inbound and outbound innovation. So you want to find experts from outside to kind of talk and bring ideas on. For the STAC steering committee, we have a couple companies that are producing data, a couple companies that are using data, and a couple companies like ours that kind of glue these things together. So you want to bring these experts together so that you can have open innovation. There's outbound innovation as well, where you get people who are heavy users of the data pushing standards out. OGC is a good example of this. For the longest time, there was no standard for geospatial data. So data producers got together, and there weren't many of them, and said, this is how we should communicate out to users. Here's a standard, please use it, please go break it, and find out what's wrong. The trade-off there is, if you originally push out a standard, you don't know where the edge cases are, and if it breaks and you didn't see where it breaks, it can fail miserably. So there's a little bit of negotiation, again, that needs to happen with open innovation. So the cool thing about open innovation, it allows impossible things to happen. COG, Cloud Optimized GeoTIFF, for example, happened in the open. And all it is a reimagining of the internal tiling of GeoTIFF. So it's backwards compatible, and suddenly we have access to clouds. We can store our data, massive amounts of data, on someone else's computer and access it on my phone, and I don't lose speed because I'm only accessing smaller pieces of the data. Outbound innovation. Yeah, so you want to look at bringing together bigger organizations and all talking about where their specific problems are, because you know, we're a 50-person company and we can't always work on something and find the edge cases, but when you work with a Meta or a Maxar or an Esri, they can find a lot of the edge cases because they just have so many more customers. So Overture Maps is an example of this. Some tech giants got together and decided that OSM standard was not working for them exactly. They could have done this internally and said, this is how we're going to push data out, and this is all you'll get. Instead, they've decided to put together and have a pay-to-play model. So if you are a heavy user of OSM, you can bring in and pay for developers to actually work on this stuff, and it's completely open. You know, this is a new strategy for OSM. Time will tell how it kind of plays out between the two communities, but there's acknowledgement there. It's not done in a silo. It's not done by itself and then released to the public. It's communicated between different giants, and also smaller companies can jump in and see if their users want to play in this area as well. So as I mentioned, Will estimates 10,000, so I was 10,000 off, but geospatial is very small. Like, yeah, I'm amazed that we can get 800 people to come to Kosovo for a conference. So it's a very dedicated group, but it's very small, and we provide a lot of value. GDAL pretty much stands up all of the technologies that geospatial companies use. So it's very small. The entirety of Facebook or Meta, for example, all the geo people could probably work under that company, but these organizations maybe have 10 people working, maybe 100 people working on geospatial products, which is kind of mind-boggling because there are companies that rely on people and where people move, and that's geography, that's context. So the geospatial market is small, but it's pretty mighty. So Will talks about a fragmented marketplace. So this is where you have very small niche groups working. They're kind of related, but they're all tackling discrete problems. So this is called a fragmented market space. If you put these all together, what you get is a model for open innovation. So you'll have different geo teams, for example, working on a product interface that talks with cloud optimized geotiffs, or it uses WMS to get the data out, and you need to have this transaction layer. None of that would be possible without the initial work done in the open. WMS is more than 20 years old now, and everyone on the map, or every map on the internet use this. This was how you communicated geospatial data on the web. Now we've moved on to TMS and WMTS, but we're still pushing out data relatively the same way based on open standards. Open data allows people to communicate context a lot better. We see Sentinel-2 and Landsat data products coming out. OSM, for example, allows you to communicate what you mean specifically to people in a very, very open format, and allows you to have context again. So open innovation is not really open core. For those who are not familiar, open core is kind of like a GitLab, where you can sign up, you get your entire business on there for free, but then there's the add-ons if you want to build it. So it's open in the middle, but the money is made on the extensions and proprietary lock-in that way. So open core is problematic if you have one company where everyone comes to, for example, GitHub. Everyone stores their code on GitHub, and if GitHub were to go down, how many organizations would suddenly lose their business, essentially? So it's problematic for small companies when you put all of your eggs in one basket. Open innovation is different, where you can push out different software tracking tools, for example, to kind of fill that gap and protect yourself against one organization going down or all your eggs cracking. So we see openness really as a strategic advantage for us. There's 10,000 people out there. Why not leverage all of those brains so that all those 10,000 people can serve the 8 billion people in the world? So the point of this is you you need to team up and collaborate with people. You need to contribute. You need to do the work to make sure that the seas rise and everyone can become better. So companies that don't want to do this, they'll inevitably fail. They'll do a niche product, and then open innovation happens and people talk about it, and edge cases are pointed out. An example of this is what 3 words. They're really pushing their proprietary grid system out to 911 operators and emergency responders who suddenly have to understand, is there an S on that word? And does it put me in a different part of the world? That is a problem I don't think they thought about, but the community has identified that and said, you're going to kill people if you continue to use this product. It is not good. So this is where openness is a strategic advantage. You can test out your products and make sure that you find the edge cases and really get your market fit. So that's it. I'm James Banting. Perfect, yeah. Thank you for coming to my talk. I'm happy to take some questions if anyone wants. Cool.
I was just curious when you said that there's a slide you said that at some point you could argue that openness might not be an advantage. I don't know, one of your slides for small organizations.
Yes, this one?
Yeah, could you explain a bit better what you mean? So under what circumstances might actually not work in your favor if you are a small organization?
Yeah, so if you're a small organization and you want to build in, let's say you're going to a big satellite provider, and you try to build in a license agreement on that data and push it out, let's say a server license, companies are not going to do this because they suddenly have to do operational expense year after year after year. They can go to Esri, who does this very well. They can go to another big organization, a Big Four consulting group, who does this. So there is no value for a big company to team up with a small company if it's proprietary, unless it's very, very specific. But again, people will point to that and say, yeah, we can do that a different way. There's better ways to solve this.
Thanks.
Yeah, cheers. Great, thank you.